Time to talk tech. I'm joined by lead for Eyes of Africa, Henry Kobler. Good afternoon to you, Henry. So, I want to begin with the headlines. The first one, the National Communications Authority indicating that a framework is now in place to license more satellite operators for internet services. We saw what happened some 3 weeks ago. I want to hear your thoughts on this move by the NPA. You're muted.
Thank you very much, Daryl. I think that it's impressive how they've been able to heed to the calls which have come in from industry players to be able to put together a framework that's going to sort of regulate and also help build that particular industry when it comes out to the internet services. I'm sort of impressed with how they've had to put it together and now inviting stakeholders to sort of join in. But I think that this call has sort of been pushed in for long. And I think that this should be also looked at, not just because we had internet disruptions and so they sort of putting it together, but there are quite a number of sectors and quite a number of functionalities that sort of need to be brought together. And there are quite a number of regulatory functions that needs to be pushed together. I mean, even with regards to fiber itself, that could be looked at and some level of framework could be put together to make sure that we're having some headways. For me, when it comes down to satellites, I think that it's not necessarily the means to an end, but I think that there could be more, because if you're looking at the cost when it comes down to satellite internet, is sort of on the high, and it's sort of way better off when we're dealing with remote areas in internet provisions. And so I think that it's a good call, and those who can sort of afford to basically use that form of internet would also be glad that it's sort of coming in a legal point.
All right, next headline, Stephen Blairwood taking over as CEO of MTN Ghana. He's filling big shoes, isn't he?
Well, I think that Selim did a great work. And then if you're looking at what he has been able to achieve, really, I think that Selim really understood as a person and then was able to put in together so much. I mean, especially looking at how MTN sort of has picked up on mobile money functionality and the sort of gains is sort of made. And so we're looking at what Steve is sort of going to bring in. I'm believing that he's going to come in with some level of ideas when it has to be in terms of infrastructure and relatively looking at mobile payment systems and maybe probably how this is always going to play up with Pan-African payment systems and also remittance services as well. But in terms of the quality of the services for calls, I think that he has some level of expertise to that. And we're looking at how MTN could flourish. Again, looking at competition that's sort of coming in from rivalry Telecel, which is coming in with some level of energy now. And I think that now having more stakeholders coming into the internet provision services as well, whilst regulatory is taking care of the frameworks, I think that we'll look at what MTN would have to prove to us, whether they could actually still make some level of profit on the services they provided for us. But it's a big issue, but I think that he can do some better work.
Yeah, next story I find so fascinating. Apparently, fraudsters are now using QR codes. Tell me about it.
So the very first time I came into contact with a QR code was when I was in Alibaba in China. And it was amazing how I had seen how QR codes had been deployed. And it was sort of like everything in terms of right from checking out product details, payment systems and all of that. I think that the transition has been thrown down here into African countries. And so we're seeing a high level of people pushing up QR codes. I mean, when you go to events, they'll tell you scan the QR codes. Even event funnels are now pushed into QR codes. And so that's how better off it's coming for us to use that technology. But again, any technology that is out there and it sees a high number of usage, you're always going to have some level of cybersecurity concerns about it. And so it's not really something that we have to get surprised about. It's very normal. I have actually created a platform that actually helped people to create their own QR codes. But again, you can understand that there are always new technologies to it. There are dynamic QR codes that are actually having to point people's QR code scans from one into some VPSs or to other services before you can actually have what exactly you're scanning out to. And so cybersecurity concerns, yes, the warnings are in place, but I think that we should also just do a lot of awareness into how people could really rightly use these services. Even the generation of these QR codes is very important. I think people get online and just type generate QR code and that's it. They just want to just generate QR codes. The platforms that are generating these QR codes should be looked at and more advanced. I think locals can actually start looking at how they could also build some of these platforms. So it makes it quite easy that they could sort of resonate with these platforms and could have some level of responsibility on them. I mean, if you're having a Ghanaian having a QR code platform generating QR codes for users, I think that when there are issues in terms of cyber consent, we have a face to the product and it makes it quite easy. But yes, we would always have these coming in and of no surprise. But I think that we have to just be careful. Payment systems are now using a lot of QR codes, and so we should be able to put in the checks and measures to make sure that we're actually safe.
Well, you said we have to be careful, and so people who use QR codes, what are some of the things they can be on the lookout for to protect themselves? In a minute, if you can.
Generally, like I said, make sure that where you're generating your QR code is sort of known. There are sort of some very good platforms that are known to be well empowered to be generating QR codes. Secondly, don't be using the free services. If it is possible to generate QR codes and you pay for the service, I think that is worth it rather than the free services that usually come with all these ads and all of that. It's better off like that. And again, I think that when you putting in QR codes, make sure that you sort of can trace the end of it, which makes it easy for you to understand that I'm scanning this and I'm going to get this result.
Henry Kobler, lead for Eyes of Africa. Appreciate that you could join us. Thank you so much. You have been watching The Marketplace.